What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today in this video, we're gonna learn how to make video game music. Super fun and super easy genre to make. The only things you're really gonna need are some sort of digital audio workstation, a couple plugins, and some drum sounds. So let's get started. The number one most important thing when it comes to making video game music is the vibe. It's the vibe, dude. Before you even load up FL Studio, before you even touch a computer, you have to figure out in your head what is going to be the vibe of the track that you're making. The purpose of video game music is to make you feel a specific way or convey a certain message at a particular point in the game. So you have to decide, what is that going to be? Is it a water level where you want kind of a subdued, bubbly, underwater type feel? Is it a boss battle where you want like a super intense, action-packed kind of vibe? Whatever it may be, once you've decided on the vibe of your track, we can go ahead and hop inside FL Studio or whatever other DAW you might be using. So here we have FL Studio. For video game music, I usually always like to start off with the melody. The melody is what drives the mood and the emotion of the song, which, like I said, is the most important thing here, so that's what we're going to focus on. The vibe that I'm going to go for with my track is going to be kind of just like a main theme, just like an open, kind of wondrous, a little mysterious, just kind of a whimsical, feel to it, you know? I'm just going to pull up some type of synth sound. Honestly, if you want, you can just use stock plugins for this. The soundtrack for Stardew Valley, which is one of my favorite games and favorite game soundtracks ever, was made entirely with stock plugins in Reaper, which is just so cool and just totally wild to me. But that just shows you that you can use pretty much anything to make this style of music. One plugin that I really like a lot is called SQ8L, which I believe is an Ensoniq SQ80 emulation plugin, and it's totally free. Probably one of my favorite plugins ever. I'm going to use the preset called Bottle. Sometimes with the melody, I like to start off with some sort of arpeggio. Sometimes I like to start off with some chords. It just depends on what you're feeling and the vibe that you're going for. But I think I'm going to start out with some sort of arpeggio. All right, so this is what I've got now. Just a simple arpeggio of the same two chords going back and forth. With video game music, you don't really have to make sure that the notes are like humanized and everything, like adjusting the timing and stuff like that, because it's honestly supposed to be like a little bit robotic and not like fully human, at least with the type of video game music we're making here. So usually once I have a main pattern like this down, what I'll start doing is going in and adding other counter melodies to build off of this. A lot of the time, I'll just add a ton of different counter melodies in there. So then eventually at the end, when I go to lay out the beat, I'll just have so many different things to choose from. I might not use everything, but I have a lot of different options. So yeah, just layer this thing up, have fun, try out different counter melodies and see what works. So one classic video game music type thing to do is to add a quicker arpeggio that just kind of goes throughout the whole melody. You can do an ascending arpeggio like this. You can do a descending one like this. You can do both of them, or whatever other variation you think sounds good. But I feel like this is just one of those things you hear and you're like, okay, yeah, this is some video game music. Also, one thing that Concerned Ape, the guy who made the Stardew Valley soundtrack, does is add stuff called ear candy, which is basically just like a little sound that happens once or twice throughout the song. It's just kind of tucked away. It's not really supposed to be a main focus of the beat or anything, but it's just something to add a nice little touch here and there and make your ear just be like, ooh, I like that right there. So an example of that could be just something like this. Just like 3 notes in there that adds a really cool effect while transitioning from one chord to the other. You can also do like a really big, really fast arpeggio, which this is one of my favorite things to do. Something like this. Alright, so we've got quite a few melodies going on, as you can see. They are literally all from SQ8L. One of my goals in the future is to eventually get an SQ80 one day, like an actual hardware one. Anyways, though, now we're going to move on to the drums. Your drum selection is going to be very important, because if you just bust out some trap drums on this thing, it's not really going to sound right. You want to go for like some vintage old school drum machine type sounds. You can probably just search up vintage drums, drum pack, and you'll find something. Or if you want a lot more variety and some very unique sounds, you can go with my video game drum kit that I have. This kit has over 100 samples in there that are perfectly tailored to video game music. If you're making video game music, this is the perfect thing to have. Link in the description if you want to go check it out, of course. As far as actually programming the drum pattern goes, you can add a little bit of swing if you want to. It's not necessary though. And if you're going for a more upbeat, higher energy feel, you can put the snare / clap on the 2 and the 4. But if you're going for a slower, more laid back feel, there's 2 things that I would recommend. Either putting the snare here and doing something like this. Or what I like to do is put the snare only on the 4 here. So if I do this, I'm generally going to go with a rhythm that sounds like this, instead of just doing like a two-step pattern. I feel like with a lot of other genres, two-step pattern is kind of just like the standard, but with certain rhythms and bounces in video game music, it doesn't really always sound the best to do a two-step pattern. So I'm going to go with this drum pattern that sounds like this. Be mindful of the fact that this is also going to drive the mood of your song too. If it's more upbeat, the song is going to feel more upbeat. If your drums are kind of slower and they have more space to them, your beat is naturally going to feel a little bit more laid back and chill. So obviously this right here with all of the layers playing together sounds like a little bit much. It's a little crowded, a little bit busy, but like I said, having a lot of options to choose from makes it really nice at the end, because when you go to lay out the beat, which we're going to do right now, it's really important to have something changing like every 4 to 8 bars. With video game music, it's really important that the listener does not get tired of hearing your track. Because this is going to be playing over and over in the background of the hypothetical game, if it gets too repetitive, it's going to get really, really tiring really fast. So we're going to right click and do split by channel for both our melody and our drum patterns. Click the top one, shift, and click the bottom one, and now drag all these in. And now we're going to listen to this and just decide what sounds good playing with other instruments. This specifically needs to be playing during like a higher energy portion of the song. Whereas if we just have this, it's a little bit more chill, more laid back. We can maybe use this as a bridge or something like that. So let's start off with the main sound, and then we'll start off with this. And then after 4 bars, we'll bring in this little pad sound, maybe this sound right here. And then we'll bring in maybe just the kick and a percussion sound. And then we'll have all the drums come in, but we'll leave this arpeggio out, and we'll leave this lead out for right now. So just go through and decide what variations of the instruments that you have sound good together. Maybe take out certain portions of the drums here and there like this. Whatever you do, just make sure it doesn't get too repetitive. Another thing that'll sound really good in your beats is kind of transitioning from one section to another. You can do this in a lot of ways. I actually have a really old video on this if you want to check it out. It's up there. But just putting a simple little crash in there will go a long way, and also doing a simple little audio cutout thing. That right there adds so much, and you barely have to do anything. And then the last thing that I would recommend as far as the layout goes is to make sure that the ending loops back perfectly into the beginning. You don't really have to do too much here. You can just leave it like this. You can also do a little fade out or something like that. Just make sure that the ending is not some wildly, crazily different thing than the very start of your beat. So now we're going to move on to the final portion, which is going to be the mixing. I'm not going to talk too much about this because it's kind of subjective, and also with video game music, it doesn't have to be like super duper high quality, crazy mixing and production on here, but there are a few little tips that I can give here that might help you out. So not everybody will like the sound of this, but one thing that I like to do is to control and then click and drag over all the drums, and then right click on an empty mixer track, do route to this track only, and then put some reverb on this track. Don't do anything crazy like some huge cathedral reverb or something, but just do like a small room reverb or something like that. And that just adds such a cool little touch and gives it like a little bit more ambience. For a lot of other genres like trap beats or even like rock or indie type stuff, I usually like to have the drums be a significant amount louder than the melody. But for this, sometimes I'll have the drums on the same level as the melody. Sometimes I'll even have them like more tucked away. But just make sure that nothing is too loud, nothing's too quiet. It all kind of fits together and mixes together well, you know, hence the name, mixing. And then if you want to go for an overall more like vintage lo-fi sounding mix, what you can do is add some sort of tape emulation plugin on the master. My favorite plugin for this is Kramer Tape. I'll leave a link in the description down below to it. If we flip this switch right here to 7.5 instead of 15, it'll give it a lot more lo-fi type sound. It's very subtle, which I like in this particular application, but if you want something more extreme, you can go with like an RC20 or something crazy like that. Also, if you want to go real crazy and just totally destroy this thing, you can put a bit crusher on it. So yeah, honestly, I think that is pretty much going to do it for me in this video here today. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you guys for watching, just hanging out, learning how to make some video game music with me. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns down in the comments below. Social media and all those other links will be down in the description if you want to check them out, and I will see you all next time.